My fellow Singaporeans, 2 days ago, on Wednesday, I received a letter from Lee Hsien Loong's lawyers demanding that Leong Sze Hian pay up the full amount of more than $262,000 for damages and legal costs by Monday, 17th of May, 5 p.m. Now, as you know, Sze Hian created history slightly more than a month ago when he raised $133,000 to cover the damages component that Lee Hsien Loong had been awarded. It was the first time that anyone who had been sued by a PAP Prime Minister or a minister had raised funds from his fellow citizens sufficient to cover the full amount. And following that, Roy Nung, who had been sued by Lee Hsien Loong 6 years ago, jumped on the bandwagon and raised $144,000 to cover entirely the damages that he owed the Prime Minister. But Sze Hian is not off the hook, because Lee Hsien Loong is also claiming from Sze Hian almost $130,000 in legal costs and disbursements. Now, there are two parts to this $130,000. His lawyers, Davinder Singh Chambers, claim $50,000 for legal costs. But it is the disbursements, that means the expenses he claimed he had to lay out for the trial, which amount to almost another $80,000. And out of this $80,000, do you know what is the shocking part of it? Almost $50,000 is going to an expert based in Hong Kong, which he called to give evidence. Now, this expert was supposed to prove that the Facebook post which Sze Hian shared had reached many thousands of people, even in the hundreds of thousands. But his evidence was not accepted at trial. In fact, the trial judge said that his evidence was somewhat speculative. Now, you would have thought that given that, the experts' expenses and costs would be discounted totally. But what shocked me was that the trial judge did not take off a single cent from the almost $130,000 cost which Lee Hsien Loong was asking for. This was the first time in my professional life as a lawyer of 30 years when I have seen a court not reduce a bill of costs by a single cent. Now, I will also now tell you how I objected to Lee Hsien Loong's lawyer's claim for $50,000 in legal costs. Now, my friends, the way I objected to Lee Hsien Loong's lawyer's claim for $50,000 for legal costs was this. You know, there is a rule of procedure and principle in our court system that if you do not expect to recover more than $250,000 in damages or losses, you have to sue in the state courts. The High Court is only reserved for claims that are more than $250,000. And there is a simple reason for this rule. It is to ensure that the machinery of justice does not get clogged up. All right? We can't have everyone rushing to go and file claims in the High Court. The High Court would have no means to deal with all claims. And as a result of this rule, the costs awarded in the High Court and the state courts differ substantially. Legal costs in the state courts are much lower. And they have to be that way because the state courts cater to the masses. All right? And Lee Hsien Loong is no different from any other litigant. In fact, the rule of law mandates that everyone is equal under the law. And whether you are the prime minister, whether you're a billionaire, if you expect to recover less than $250,000, you should go to the state courts to sue. And our state courts are perfectly well capable of deciding on defamation cases. A few months ago, they awarded a well-known blogger $60,000 in damages for defamation. Now, this rule can only be departed from in very exceptional cases, as the case law have suggested. But there are no exceptional cases in this instance. The legal principles on which both parties fought this case were well-established principles. We were not trying to create new law. There were no novel principles of law involved here. And so I suggested to the court, basing on past precedents, and there have been cases fought in the state courts on defamation involving senior counsel, involving many more parties than just two, as in our case, and lasting many more days, that Lee Hsien Loong should not get more than $25,000 in legal costs. But despite my best endeavors and objections, the trial judge awarded them $50,000 in legal costs, exactly the amount they had claimed. He did not tax off, he did not reduce a single cent. So again, my friends, I want to repeat again, this is the first time in my 30 years as a lawyer where I have gone to tax a bill and the judge, the courts, have not reduced the bill by a single cent. To me, it is astounding. But we have only a few days left, and I hope you will assist Sze Hian, lend him a big helping hand, because this case is very important for our nation. You know, the PAP would of course like to do things their way. They like things not to change. And that is what we saw a few days ago with SPH, right? They have now reduced that organization from a commercial entity into one that is limited by guarantee that will be provided by the government, no doubt. And they have pulled one of their ministers from out of retirement from the pastures to helm it. But we know that under Lee Hsien Loong, our country has stagnated and regressed. And that is not the way forward. This case is also very important for our younger generation, for the Gen Zs, for the Alpha generations, because we must give them an example that our people cannot be silenced by way of archaic defamation laws, and that the freedom of expression is a paramount element in life. Everything we do in life, my friends, is about freedom. Your CPF is about your freedom to live the life you want to live. And we know that freedom of speech is fundamental to the progress of our society. It is fundamental to innovation and creativity. So I make the plea to you again in these last 5 days to donate as generously as you can to Sze Hian. And on the 17th of May, I will personally deliver that check to Lee Hsien Loong's lawyers, and every cent of it would have come from the people of Singapore. Thank you.